Gaming and BS episode 138. Welcome to Gaming and BS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I am Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back if you've been with us before. Glad to have you here again.
All right. This episode of Gaming and BS sponsored by GameholeCon.com, a gaming convention occurring in Madison, Wisconsin, the first weekend of November. Get your ass to GameholeCon. Visit GameholeCon.com for more information. We, speaking of GameholeCon, have VC is running an Alpha Omega game. Looks like he's registered that under our banner. So if you find out and you're going through the event listing when it opens up to you when you're attending, you may want to check him out and his info on there. I don't know if you can see the event's details yet.
I don't know if you can or not. I know Forrest Gary was looking to do something under our banner as well. So good old Forrest probably has something out there too, if not something coming. You know, and speaking of that, Sean and I, we put the call out there last time, but, just to be clear, it's always good for Sean and I to know what you want to run under our banner so we could say, hey, this is cool, it's great, we want to make sure we promote you, and we can get people to show up at your game. So anything you want to do, let us know. And we'd love to be able to help, push people and tell them how cool your event will be and all that good stuff. So get a hold of us. Let us know if you're interested in doing it and what you'd like to run because, again, that's just it's fun.
Yes. Announcements.
Yeah, well, other than what we just talked about for running things under GameholeCon, I've mentioned this last show and just want to call it out again. I'm going to be at Origins in June, so I'll be there. Sans Sean, trying to decide if I'm going to ride the motorcycle down or if I'm just going to carpool with Kevin and Austin. We shall see. But anyway, I will be there in June. If there's any listeners out there, it would be great to meet people, have a beer, talk gaming, and all that good stuff. So that will be fun.
I think if I did go,
yeah,
I would ride bike.
It's June. It's really tempting.
I would take rain gear, and I would be miserable if I had a weekend full of wet. But I gotta put some miles on that sucker.
Yeah, and so for those of you who aren't aware of the incredibly shitty weather that happened in Wisconsin, I am tying it directly back to Sean's purchase. He bought a Sean had a Harley Sportster, which, and if you don't know bikes, sorry, tune out for a second, but he had a Sporty. Then he and the wife talked it over, and the wife convinced him, you know what you need? Baby? You need a bigger touring bike. So Sean finds himself a kick-ass Street Glide. He's going to go get that sucker. He picks it up. It fucking snows. It fucking snowed the day after he got it. I shit you not.
I actually rode that sucker. I picked it up on Madison's west side. For all those of you that don't know, that doesn't mean much to you. But basically, it's about on the opposite side of town from where I live, which is probably about 15 miles maybe. But it didn't rain the day I picked it up. I drove it. My wife was getting her hair done in another town, which I got to ride to, and I didn't get dumped on. And the thing is, Brett and I know, and if you've ridden motorcycle before, getting dumped on in rain is one thing. Getting dumped on in rain and having it be 45 degrees sucks.
Yeah, when I was younger and stupid, I got caught in snow once. I will never, ever do that again.
Snow.
Yeah, when the ice crystals are hitting your face at like 60 miles an hour, you start to question every stupid decision you've ever made that drove you to this point. That is a bad idea. Never doing that again.
So,
anyway,
if anybody hears this like a year from now, I will not have my Sportster, hopefully, because I'll be selling it. But if you hear this in the next week, we're recording this May 1st? What day?
April
is it?
30th. April
30th,
2017.
I'm going to put my bike, my Sportster up on Craigslist. I can't ship it to you, and if I do ship it to you, you're going to have to pay for the cost. But if you're local and you want a affordable scooter to get around town, email me at gamingandbs@gmail.com.
Sean needs to offset the cost of the other one he just bought, so please buy his old bike.
Yeah. Anyways, enough of bike talk.
Bike talk.
Bike talk with Brett and Sean.
the next, this is kind of cool. So as folks know, Jason Hobbs, friend of the show, supporter, great guy, all around cool dude. And yes. And Mr. Hobbs has Hobbs and Friends of the OSR. He's got his own little podcast cooking, which is a pretty damn bit of fun. Sean beat me to the podcast, by the way. So he got to the podcast to be a guest on there before I did, son of a bitch.
Scott Hubbs invited me over there.
He did. It's pretty cool.
Good times.
It's a good episode.
I don't wonder if it was the one that they submitted for an Emmy.
It probably is. I think if I was going to submit an Emmy, I would pick the one that you were on, just because it just proves you can handle it without me. That's what it does.
Although the Hoff has been on there twice now. Eric Hoffman.
That's true. You got this. You're fighting the Stormlord, man, and I've met the Stormlord. Yeah, good luck, Sean.
He's got street cred, that guy.
He totally does.
And he's pretty damn attractive, if I must say so myself.
He is a fine-looking man and well-spoken gentleman, too.
He and I share the same hair color. We call it the pepper.
Anyway, so Sean and I, when we were at GaryCon, we convinced Hobbs that, hey, listener and friend supporter of the show, Corey Wynn, had sent Sean and I this wonderful Greyhawk by Gygax and Kuntz, supplement number 1, published by Tactical Study Reviews for $5 back in the day. It's that old school digest size. It's the additional rules for fantastic medieval war games. I'll put a link up there. It is a collector's item. It's really, really cool. So this goes back to your white box, brown box type of thing. And I had this sitting on a stack of stuff. I'm like, we need to have a contest of some kind. We need to give this away to somebody. And then the Book of the Trask comes out, and I'm like, motherfucker, that's an awesome book, too. You know what we need to do, guys? We need to have an old school encounter contest. So I talked to the Hobbs, I talked to the Sean, and we're going to start a contest. It'll start the first week here in May. So when this drops on May 2nd, 2017, you will have until June 3rd of 2017 to get in. We've got some rules we'll post up. Basically, we want to have, it's kind of an OSR type of approach, first to second level type of encounter. We're going to have a couple different creatures for you to choose from, and a couple more bits and pieces that'll go into it. We'll have a link in the show notes to where we'll have it on a website. We'll post it up on Google+, Facebook, and, of course, Hobbs will have it over in his Hobbsosphere as well. So, that's a new term, Hobbsosphere. I like it. So, winner gets the Greyhawk Supplement 1, which I have in my hands here, and a PDF copy of the Book of the Trask. And we'll do a runner-up. Runner-up will also get a PDF copy of the Book of the Trask. The other thing we want to do is, well, before I go any further, I also want to thank Chris Nizak, the guys at Encoded Design, Misdirected Mark, for helping us out with the Book of the Trask and making sure that was something we could give away to folks. So, once again, the Misdirected Mark connection for Gaming BS pays off dividends. We also have.
It's gonna be huge.
It's gonna be huge.
It's gonna be huge. It's gonna be a contest. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it.
And we just lost a whole bunch of people. Anyway, so what we're gonna do then is all the submissions we get, we're gonna take them, turn them into a PDF, and any one of our patrons and Hobbs patrons will send the PDF of all the different encounters we get out to everybody. If I'm really lucky and I can twist Mr. Sneezak's arm, I might get him to do a little layout magic for us. But if nothing else, it'll at least be in a PDF form so we can give out there. And Jason Hobbs is putting together a zine for his Hobbs and Friends of the OSR, so we're going to get those slid into his zine as well. I just thought it'd be kind of fun. So, anyway, details to be posted up. So when you hear this, rush out to the website, the G pluses, the Facebookage, and all that good stuff. You'll see the goodies, and off you go. Starts first week in May, ends June 3rd.
So is it an adventure they got to make, or what's?
Yep, it's an encounter. It's a single. It's an encounter. We're gonna have limits on size and so forth, so we don't have somebody with an obscene amount of time, right of us, huge, 5-page, or 5-book diatribe or something. But we're gonna look for page, maybe 2-page encounter. Should be kind of cool. Like I said, I'll have some more specifics out there for everybody, but just wanted to whet your appetite with a little hint of cool things coming. So anyway, that's what we got.
So we will put that on our website for sure, where you can find it at gamingnbs.com/OSR-encounter-contest.
And links.
It'll be at that page. We'll link to that. And everybody can go there and get all the details of what Brett is outlining for that contest and submission into PDF. So some writing cred people could get if they want to get.
Yeah, if they would ever wish to say that they wrote something for Gaming MBS and Hobbs, and say that proudly to anybody, you could then be able to do that. You could do that.
The bar's pretty low, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you do have to start somewhere. It's kind of a basement start, really, for us, or a sub-basement. Anyway, thought it'd be fun, so there you go.
Right. Excellent, Brett. Well, looking forward to all those awesome entries. Awesome.
Are we ready?
Yes, random encounter.
Random encounter.
Random encounter. Segment of the show where we field emails, voicemails, comments from social media. We've got a few from our feedback session 0 and a couple other almost kind of suggestive emails, Brett.
Ooh, I'm kind of turned on. All right, so, feedback on session 0.
So for Alex, he wrote in quite an extensive email. Alex, I condensed it a little bit. So he knows this. He's like, hey, I have to read the whole thing. So for the focus, condensed it a little bit. So go ahead, Brett.
No problem. And Alex, and anybody else, just preamble here. If we do, because sometimes we get a long email, we want to crush it down a little bit. We have the talk with you. Say, hey, cool, Alex is great. He says we can do that. If I, in reading this, Alex, miss a key point that Sean willy-nilly with his editorial pen destroyed, let us know, and then we can call him on the carpet there. All right. Wow. Alex says, I think there was an element missing from the session 0 discussion. It's possible that this was covered previously or is considered a wholly different topic, but I was surprised at your lack of consideration for holding a game for a group of players totally new to tabletop RPGs. Maybe this is session 0.0. Having just recently got back in the hobby myself at the behest of one such group, I, knowing my players, decided the best thing to do to introduce the hobby and game was to do a rules light session. This would be similar to what another listener described as a single person, quote-unquote, presenting a new game to the rest of the group. I think he's referencing VC's discussion. VC Young talked about that. He continues, having familiarized myself with the rules, I invited my players over for the session, performed all the die rolls myself. Rolled about 50% as much as one normally would have, and largely followed the rule of cool when a player asked if they could do something. I designed a session that would highlight the 3 major aspects of any tabletop game: roleplay, exploration, and combat. I walked the players through the mechanics at each critical point, explaining what I was rolling and why. After the session, I pointed to different areas of the game where more rules would have changed the flavor, briefly explained what and how often I glossed over things, and asked if they'd be interested in continuing with the system. If yes, great, go out and buy rulebooks. If not, also great. No one has wasted any money. To be sure, there are 2 big drawbacks in this method. Primarily, experienced hobbyists will not get enough information about their true enjoyment of the system if they're only playing a skimmed-down version. And secondarily, character creation was entirely out of the hands of the players. I asked some questions about their desired playstyle and assigned a class based on their answers and used average stats. Granted, it had them roll their own characters afterwards, but as you mentioned in the episode, character creation can be a crucial method of learning about the system and gauging whether or not you will like it. Anyways, I was just curious if you guys had ever done something like this, and whether or not you found it successful. Again, apologies if this was already covered. I'm still working through the historical episodes. I prattled on long enough. Love the podcast, and thank you again for your time and effort. Respectfully, Alex Auerbach. And
Auerbach.
Auerbach. Did I say Bach? God damn, I saw an H in there. P.S. Well, this is here we go. P.S. Sean, you nailed the pronunciation. Few people managed it the first time.
Yeah, baby.
Once again,
gotcha, Alex.
Auerbach. Damn, I can't believe I did that.
It's easy. It's easy to do. I'm sure.
Absolutely, especially when you're an idiot like me.
Hey.
Anyway, Alex. So I did do something very similar to that. I mentioned, I believe, my youngest son AJ had his 11th birthday. 11th birthday. He had a party. 4 of his buddies were over. He wanted me to run D&D. So I ran a very skimmed-down version of basic D&D for them. Used very simplified spell descriptions, simple. And the couple of them really, really liked it. Some of them loved it and really were kind of interested. Yeah, oh boy, there's more rules. Oh, that would be fun. AJ has since talked to a few of them about getting back together over the summer or something to play. And as usual, only a couple are like, yeah, that really sounds fun. I guess I could really get into that. So the idea being is when they come back, I might jump them into something like 5e, a little bit more rulesy and so on. But similar, method to what you did, most of these boys, except for honestly, all those boys except for my son had never played before. So I had 4 brand new kids at the table besides AJ. So it did something similar there. But I think that's a legit approach. What do you think, Sean? You agree with me, man?
Oh, yeah, that's not a bad approach at all. I mean, if it's going to work to get your points across and have you have a systematic, wow, vocabulary needs some work. Systematic approach, Alex, which seems pretty straightforward. I would probably do it. It's similar to it's kind of like playing cards, and you all kind of play a hand of cards all face up kind of deal.
Yeah.
You know, you're teaching somebody a new card game and going through a few hands, and you kind of show them different ways that the game works. I always relate my teaching of card games to Sheepshead. Oh, does anybody know Sheepshead out there? Midwesterners.
I suck at that game.
I love Sheepshead. I haven't played in a while, but anyway, Shopscuff. And anyways, but yeah, I could totally see how that would work. I guess he mentioned it being kind of its own session. So I would imagine that you're kind of like you're keeping all the flavor out of it, more or less getting into the mechanics, and then starting the actual game is what I would be interpreting, Alex, but let me know if I'm wrong. Which is also a good way. I just wonder if some people would just start out the game that way. Like, here, we're going to start the campaign, and this is how it's going to roll. We'll just roll through some things. Maybe it's the first encounter in media res. I don't know.
Well, the cool thing is when he says kind of a session 0.0, it's almost true, right? He's talking about, addition variation on the theme. Sean and I were talking more specifically, or more traditionally, I should say, about gamers who already know how to game. Like, hey, what do you do with an experienced table, or at least a semi-experienced table? And here we're talking about somebody who's brought in to help out a group of people who've never done it before. So that's a kind of a neat way to go. It's kind of that whole cards up. You get it? Does it sound like fun? You all want to learn how to play Sheepshead? Yeah, I really want to try that. Okay, cool. Now, let's roll up some real characters and let's really get into it. So that's a good approach. I like that, man.
Yeah.
Next one is yours, sir.
All right, Roger Braslett shares Rick Stump's method of starting his second edition campaign. So this is kind of the session 0 talk continuing. So thank you, Roger, for sharing Rick's method. How I started a second E campaign. He's got these bulleted. Made sure I had the AD&D second E books, including all skills and powers. Sketched out all the available classes, including making 4 custom builds with the skills and powers rules. And then number 3, sketched out a world map. Number 4, wrote a precise of history. What? Maybe I got that typed wrong.
No, it's a term I can never. Precis. It's PRECIS. Basically, it's a piece of. I can never pronounce that word. I think it's
Precis.
Yes.
Oh my God, of history from the late Paleolithic through current day. Yes, really. Okay. Dove down and made a regional map about the size of the eastern seaboard of North America. Then sketched out the 5 largest cities, made a series of political grouping, and wrote up over 120 NPCs, the most prominent of them including family trees back 5 generations. Wow. And then sketched out the capital cities of the largest nations outside the main game area, about 40 NPCs each. Oof. Wrote the arc for 4 major campaign-long stories, adding NPCs and magic items for them, too. Then continued to write up a full evil humanoid nation and 8 associated tribes, including lairs and loot. Then collanged 20 to 90 words and basic syntax for 3 in-universe languages. Filled in major trade routes and trade seasons, and then made the first 6 or so adventures to get a new party to 2nd+ level. All before anyone rolled a character.
That's a fair amount of dedication.
Wow.
Right out of the gate. That's pretty cool.
That is that is good stuff, but that is not what Sean is going to do.
No, it's not.
Fuck that shit.
Well, the cool thing though is, so let's say, oh, and by the way, I looked it up. It's a précis. It's a summary it's a précis. It's a summary or abstract of text or speech. That's what it is.
Oh,
there we go.
Look at that. We all kinds of
Man,
fun with words.
We're learning today. Anyway, so if Rick goes at this, and you go this way, and let's say you do session 0, and Sean's like, "Oh, I wasted my fucking time. Nobody wants to do it." You didn't waste it. You have that world. It's written down. You set it aside. Next time someone goes, "Hey, I want to play second edition," I can do that. So what's in here isn't necessarily wasted if it doesn't work or the group doesn't want to go that route, blah, 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 blah. You can always, excuse me, you can always take that and reuse it. I mean, that's just great world-building type-y stuff. It's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. But that is, wow. That is, I guess it depends on where you set the adventure. And, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, is it important at that point to have your own homebrew? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you use a campaign setting. It's got all that crap.
Maybe, yeah. I just think there's no railroad being laid. There's no tracks. There's no engineering. I don't know. Sean can't do this.
What the hell is this crap?
What is this?
You're giving the characters like all kinds of avenues. What the hell?
All right. So we had next up is Curtis Takahashi posted a question on G+. He said, "Okay, Brett and Sean, got a question. When discussing the tomes of magic in Call of Cthulhu, is a copy as potent as the original? Certain handwritten copies have their own stats. What about photographic / xerographic digital copies? Is the information in the actual tome that can is the information or the actual tome that contains the power? If it's just the info, how many copies of the original Necronomicon, Pencotic manuscripts, or De Vermis Mysterious are out there? Thanks in advance." So I answered Curtis on G+. I went into a little bit on this. So in short, Ken and Robin actually did a bit on this a while back on one of their episodes. And I kind of take a page directly from Lovecraft himself in the horror, the Dunwich Horror. When, spoiler, if you haven't read this book that's been out for fucking ever,
I haven't read it.
Well, too bad. Wilbur Whately needs to do a thing. His copy of the Necronomicon turns out to be incomplete. And he's fucked if he doesn't figure this thing out, because the horrible thing he's trying to make happen will go even crazier bad if he can't figure this thing out. So he scours as many libraries as he can, either writing to different libraries across the world or trying to physically go to them to get a copy of the Necronomicon that has what he needs. Something's missing from it. I've usually said that, excuse me, the original is where it's at. Any separation from that is all subject to misinterpretations and so forth. So another good one from another inspirational thing is there's a book about it too, but the Ninth Gate, it's a Johnny Depp movie. There are these 3 books, and each one happens to have a clue that the other ones don't have, and he's got to figure it out, put them together, and oh my god, now you can summon Satan. So it's kind of handy if that's a thing you want to do. Anyway, so short version for me is I looked directly to Lovecraft and what I pulled out of my different readings of those stories. And anybody who had a copy or a handwritten text or a slightly different variation on the theme, there's always some inaccuracy. The original is where it's at. And if you were to throw it up in the digital world, hey, there's 6, bazillion copies of the Necronomicon now, all floating through the internets. Well, guess what? They're not the original, though, so they're flawed. They're damaged. And that's a wonderful, even esoteric type of thing. If you go esoteric route, that's a fun, modern Delta Greenie type of adventure to go through for a Call of Cthulhu, where you're trying to hunt down whoever keeps punting those damn things out on the internet. Or a cyber task force that's not forced, but their job is to go out and try to find the sections of the internet where the closest copies are, the most dangerous and most damaging copies could be, would drive people mad and so forth, and trying to get those pulled down and so on. Anyway, that's my approach. Sean?
I got nothing to contribute to that. That's Brett's forte there.
Sean's not a Cthulhu guy.
I am not as well versed, for sure. Thanks for writing in, Curtis.
Absolutely. Good stuff, man. Thank you.
Gabe Dibing comments on G+. I went through your feed and you haven't discussed mass combat. To me, these...
That's true. We haven't.
We have not. You are absolutely accurate. To me, these rules in an RPG often are as unwieldy as one's typical grappling rules. But you haven't discussed those either, right? That is true. No.
Not in depth. We talked about rules we tend to ignore, like why do we pass by certain ones. We talked about grappling as an example thereof, but we've not gotten into grappling specifically. Correct.
Do you have any thoughts on mass combat? Possible show topic? Here's what my own thoughts resulted in. And he has a link that we will put in the LLS show notes, which is the Tower of the Valkyrie.wordpress.com/date/mass simplified mass combat rules.
That's a show topic. It's in the list.
Excellent.
It has been added.
It has been added.
So, Sean, before we get into it, have you done mass combat in your RPGs?
Ooh, it has been... it's been a long time if I have done mass combat. Because you also have to kind of define what mass combat is, Brett.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, and that's a very good point. So when we do get to that, we're going to hash that out. What's mass combat? Is it basically a platoon? Is it larger? Is it, battalion sized? Is it full army? What do we got? So, yeah. Interesting, though. I like that. I've not honestly thought about mass combat in my games. So, yes, that's on the list. Thank you, Gabe. All right, next up is Matt Martinez on G+. He was pondering player-facing die rolls. Matt says, I've been thinking more about the concept of player-facing die rolls, mainly in terms of a micro-RPG I want to hack together for occasions where you want to run something impromptu and can be easy enough for people who've never played an RPG before, tabletop or otherwise. The basic idea is sort of ripped off from Dungeon World that uses 2d6 and uses the same scale of success, 1 to 6 failure, 7 to 9 partial, 10 to 12 success. Snake Eyes catastrophic failure, Boxcars critical success. Can't remember off the top of my head if Dungeon World uses that rule or not, the critical success and failure he's referring to.
Do not.
I don't believe it did, no.
No.
Where I'm getting a little hung up is how I want to handle combat. I like to use Savage Worlds' method of every character, PC and NPC alike, having an equal number of wounds they can take. However, that would lead to abandoning the core resolution mechanics so that the target number for tougher enemies is higher. Also, I know some of my players have found the cycle of whacking away at an enemy without doing damage, but is tedious when playing Savage Worlds. Another option would be to instead use hit points, but I'd rather not. I'm just curious if there are any games people can think of in which the target number is static for all systems within the rules, but PCs and NPCs all take the same number of hits.
I don't know of any off the top of my head, although I think Tim Jensen had mentioned World of Dungeons might be an option.
I think he did, yes. I'll tell you, man, if you get on Google Plus in our community and you have a question like this, summon Tim Jensen by, hey, plus Tim Jensen on it. Do you know anything about there? Because if there is a dude who knows a game that I've either never heard of or have only passing familiarity with, Tim knows them. He really, really knows his shit.
Well, and so he did pose that on the Google Plus, and Tim did talk about it. But I put it out here in case other people may find it of interest and would want to chime in.
Good idea. Very good idea.
In the show notes, if you can contribute to Matt's kind of dilemma. I don't know of a particular system that is a target number that is static within the rules, but the PCs and NPCs all take the same number of hits. That may be Minions? I'm trying to think of the Minions rules. No, that's not going to do it in Star Wars.
Something's telling me that I've got an old game somewhere that does this where I've played it, but I cannot put my finger on it right now. I'm at a loss.
I mean, Cypher, you've got the level, so if everybody's at the same level, the target is relatively the same. I don't know how many hits they would take before they're gone.
I don't know.
But that may be an option, too. I'm not quite sure.
Interesting.
Anyways, let us know what you find out, Matt.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, thanks again for the excellent podcasting. Pause. I've enjoyed the Sorry, I wrote that in. I've enjoyed the class-based player series, especially episode 128, Fighters, and the hard-to-find episode 130B, Stay-at-home parent by day, stripper by night. What did we do?
Maybe we. I don't know if we did. Maybe we did
Well,
that
I think
one.
we might have hinted. Did we hint at one?
I don't know. Maybe we did.
That's a difficult class to master. So I appreciate the advice. So you so generously shared from your own experiences. Glitter removal should be easier from now on. Was that when you were talking about your motorcycle, Brett?
I don't know.
I think it was because your wife Susan was talking about the glitter bike.
No,
Stripper bike.
I think
getting glitter on.
I think we were talking. I was talking about there's a one bike at the Madison dealership. It looked like a bike that Liberace would ride. It was gold and loud and flecked, and it was just fabulously gorgeous. It was like crazy, crazy, sparkly gold. It was nutsy. My wife does call my bike a stripper bike because of the pearlescent blue to it. She thinks it's funny.
I know he's talking. I know we hinted at something like that.
Must
so that's
have.
what he's referring to.
Must have.
I have an idea for another topic in that series, sort of. My notion is for GMs, not players. Players might benefit. I'd love an episode on how GMs could run their supreme villain characters. I resist calling them the big bad because that phrase has just become so cliche, and it is that very hackneyed storytelling that I hope to avoid. Even though I usually GM, I am weary of other GMs playing their uber antagonists the same way over and over again. It's that overcooked Hollywood formula. Something wicked happens. Players investigate. Soon enough, the villain makes a brief appearance. More investigation and warfare while the villain is behind the scenes. Finally, the horrible baddie is reached and the last combat happens. But the big bad guy has a trick up his sleeve before the end. The heroes win and someone cracks a joke. Fade to black before the credits roll. Look, that's a viable formula, but I'd like to experience something else. What other ways are there for the referee, GM, DM, whatever, to use their chief villains? Maybe something interesting could come out of that. Maybe not. Anyway, thanks for considering. Also, Brett, based on your discussion of MERP, which I love, with Dead Games, you might want to check out the One Ring RPG by Cubicle 7. Feels more Tolkien-esque to me than any game before. Cheers, George.
Well, George, two things. One, that's a dang good topic idea, so I just put that in the list as well. Got to see how we can fit that into the schedule and how we want to attack it. But I did at one point have a copy of the One Ring, and I read through it and went, wow, this is very Tolkien-esque, and it looks pretty cool. However, I could not convince anyone in my group or groups that they would want to give it a shot. Everybody who I knew that liked playing in Tolkien's Middle-earth were all MERP fans. Like, oh, if we're gonna play in Middle-earth, I want to play MERP. Okay. Wow. All right then. So I had it for a while, and I ended up actually had an opportunity. Somebody else was desperately looking for a copy of it, and I'm like, you know what? It's sitting on my shelf gathering dust. I'm going to offload it. So I sold it. That said, though, it pops up periodically on my maybe I shouldn't have sold that memory. So I may go back out and grab it because it does definitely have a very Tolkien-esque feel. Very good stuff. And again, that's a cool topic idea. Thank you, George.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. My cell phone's about to go dead, and Brett's looking at me on it, and I gotta plug it into an outlet.
Yes. Otherwise, I can't see Sean. It makes me sad.
Charging. Yeah. All right. And of course, plugging it in on a Mac triggers iTunes, which I'm going to have to kill.
Oh man.
Anyways, thanks for writing in, George. Next, let's get into the main topic.
Yes, sir.
All right, Brett, what are we doing this week?
So I want to talk about skill lists, the quote-unquote complete list of skills that many game systems have. And those games, those game systems that don't have them. Do we need them? Do we like them? And so on. This was spawned by, I started running DCC and Lamentations of the Flame Princess recently. for a couple different. As I've said, my home gaming group has a lot of people in it. It's more like a gaming club, really, and we've got basically 2 different groups right now, and one I'm running Lamentations for, one I'm running DCC for. I have a couple players in both, and we were talking about it. My buddy Zave and I actually were talking, and he said, "You know what's kind of bugging me, Brett?" And I said, "What's that, Zave?" He says, "There isn't a list of skills." And I'm like, "Why does that bother you, man?" And he loves Rollmaster. Rollmaster was the game he cut his teeth on, believe it or not. That's the game he's played more than anything else. And he's played 5e, he's played Pathfinder, he's played World of Darkness with me. I've played with Dave now for almost 30 years. And I said, we haven't played a game system that doesn't have some sort of skill list in a very, very long time. Gumshoe has skill list. Call of Cthulhu, the basic role-playing system has them. GURPS has skill lists and so forth. And I really, at first, I looked at him and I'm like, well, I don't know how to fix that problem. I'm really not sure what to do with that. Because it really wasn't bothering me that there wasn't a list of skills. And so I took it away and I thought about it more. And I'm like, you know what? I'm on this side of the Game Master screen, right? It's not impacting me because I'm just running NPCs and monsters and such. But what about those poor players, Sean? Those poor players that may or may not need a list. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Sweet.
So, to my knowledge, your basic D&D, your original D&D, your white box, brown box, Moldave, Holmes, Mensner, there is no skills in those. There are no skills in first edition AD&D until certain Dragon magazines, and then, of course, the Dungeoneers and the Wilderness Survival Guide, and I think Oriental Adventures had some skills as well. Used to have some background roles. I think Unearthed Arcana may have had some of those. Somebody out there is going to remember that stuff off the top of their head better than I am. But it was not a thing that you had lists of skills in AD&D for a very long time. Rollmaster, of course, has had skill lists for fucking ever. And Call of Cthulhu and the BRP system and so on. Excuse me. In short, most OSR-style games that I'm familiar with, Swords and Wizardry, let's see, Osric, and so forth, they don't have, and Lamentations and Call of Cthulhu, DCC, Lamentations, and Swords and Wizardry, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, many of them don't have big lists of skills. You get your BX game, you don't have all that. So, Sean, have you ever encountered this where you've had either yourself as a player or players in a group where you're playing an OSR-style game, or any game, honestly, that doesn't have the complete list of skills or some list of skills that's been a quandary or a problem? Have you ever encountered that?
That does not list complete set of skills?
Yeah, so like you're playing, DCC. When you play DCC, does the fact that there's not a definitive list of skills for you to say, oh, I'll make a search check. Oh, I'll make a, herald. I'll make a history check to see if I know the heraldry of this nation.
No, I don't think it bothers me. No. It doesn't bother me. I'm a little, it doesn't bother me, but I do understand why there are systems that do have skills.
So why do you think they do have skills?
Because not every character is created equal.
Okay. So it's one more way to differentiate my thief from your thief.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Like you and I, Brett, we have different skills.
Yes.
And that's okay. Brett could still do what Sean does, but he may not be well versed in that.
No, Brett would not excel at Sean's job.
Well, I don't know if you would necessarily not excel versus, because who knows, maybe you roll really high, Brett, doing something that I do. But typically day to day, the chances of me doing project management work well is probably not that great. Will I hit a deadline? Maybe. But my chances are least likely than you.
Fair enough, yeah.
So I think that's why I like the current skill list in like the 5e D&D, because it's not, because I think some people that get hung up on skill lists do so because they think that if they do not have the skill, okay, in a game that has skill lists, if you do not have the skill, you cannot do it. Now, that is not true. Most games will allow you to do it. You just aren't going to get a bonus, or it's going to be at a minus or what have you.
Well, there's a thing when you look at your character sheet and you see this, like a Call of Cthulhu game, right? Or even Gumshoe, and you see this pretty sizable list of stuff that you could conceivably do. And you look there and you have no points in firearms. You have no points in drive. You have no points in swim. And you go, oh, can't swim, can't shoot a gun, I can't drive a car. The fuck. Damn, this sucks. When in fact, dun dun dun, the rules themselves are like, look, if you don't have any points in it, you can do it at this disadvantage, you can have a minus or so on. But when you're, especially newer players, and I've even seen older, well-seasoned veterans, men and women, looking at character sheets saying, oh yeah, damn, if I have no skill in that, I really can't do that. And someone else across the table goes, anybody can climb a wall. It's not that hard. It's got to be hard for you to climb the wall. But just because you don't have a climbing skill doesn't mean you can't climb a damn wall. Oh, yeah, I guess I could do that. Thanks, Ange. And I could go climb my wall. You know, I think sometimes if the more complete or more specific a list, it has an implication to some players anyway, not everybody, of course, and even some game masters, that if you're not skilled in it, you can't do it at all, which is, and maybe some game systems are like that, and I'm just not thinking of some, but it's to be that exclusive, like, look, you can't even use a gun. Don't even know which end to point at somebody. Feels weird.
Yeah, I don't think there's a game out there that, I'm trying to think of ones off the top of my head that simply say that if you don't have the skill, you can't do it.
The only ones I have seen game systems, and God, I want to say Pathfinder or one of those said this, that swimming, like, if you look up the swim skill, they're like, look, if you don't know how to do this, y'all can't swim, you're going to drown. Trying to pick certain skills to say, this one is either yes or no. You cannot, if you don't know how to swim, you're going to fucking drown if I drop you in the ocean, if you don't know how to swim. And there's a weird thing that happens then, too, with skills and the level of quote-unquote realism or whatever you want to define that at in your RPG. And then you'll be like, well, yeah, clearly, if you can't swim, I guess you'll just drown. And then somebody at the table will go, wait a minute, when I was a kid, Dad just threw me in a lake, and bam, I figured out how to swim pretty fucking fast because I didn't want to drown, so there's a chance you could at least tread water, right? I don't know how to use a gun accurately, but it's a shotgun. I know how to pick it up and point. I've seen movies. I know how to work a slide on a pump shotgun. I should be able to figure this out. So sometimes the list of the skills and having points in them give players and game masters also a thing to bounce against, right? Say, well, you only have 1 point in it, you're not really good. Or you don't have any points in it, so yeah, you can figure it out, but you obviously need to be at a significant disadvantage because you don't really know how to do it. You know theoretically how to do a thing, but you've never physically done it often enough to have obtained a level of proficiency. You buying what I'm selling or no?
I am, and I do agree that it has to do with a level of efficiency, proficiency, expertise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you, though, Kevin and I were talking about this a couple different times, and I think it was Kev Thulu and I said this, and one of us said, I am so sick of these huge lists of skills. Give me a condensed, simplified skill version. And some of that is, again, type of game I like to play. How detailed do I want it?
GURPS.
GURPS. Champions.
From our buddy,
yeah.
Steve Jackson Games.
God, that guy.
We love Steve. Hey, Steve, we love you.
Love you too.
Wherever you are.
Love you, babe.
Love you.
Anyway, so I know there's always a preference. Somebody will be like, oh, I like a very intricate system, or I don't, and so forth. But when you have a game system that doesn't have any, right? You've got the variations on the theme of, okay, Pathfinder may seem a little heavy on the skill list. Oh, 5e's lighter on the list. Oh, GURPS is way heavier. Oh, basic role-playing is kind of middle ground, but there's a lot of stuff in there, and so forth. Even a game like the World of Darkness system, it's not intense, but there's lots of different dots on your character sheet with, do I have drive? Do I have melee? Do I have, weapons? Do I have firearms? Do I have library use? Do I have this, that, and the other thing? Now, if you take that, and the other polar side is there's no list of skills. DCC, I'll paraphrase, but it's basically like, look, if your background is you were a blacksmith, you're a dwarven blacksmith raised in a certain town, you can do dwarven blacksmith, I was raised in a certain town stuff at a certain die level. That's your regular straight D20. So basically, if I can argue with Sean as my judge, say, hey, you know, Jen Brinkman and I are trying to figure out what to do here. She's like, as a dwarf, you should be able to sort this out. I'm like, you're right, Sean. I was a dwarven blacksmith. I was raised in, the Iron Hills, just outside of Smithforge. So I should be able to figure out this problem, or at least have a notion of it. Sean goes, you know what? I buy that. Give me a skill roll on that 20 to see if you can do it. Or you want to knock down a door, you use your stat or whatever. Now, if I do say, well, I've never done this before because I'm a dwarven smith from the Iron Hills who grew up just outside of Smithforge, and I need to row a boat across the raging river. Sean would be like, no, you've never rowed a boat. You use a D10 or you use a die chain to do something. So the problem, or the mental click I'm talking about my buddy Zave, was, hey, there's no skills listed here. And not everybody is very comfortable saying, oh, this is just in my background, or making up off the cuff or off the top of their head, pull out of their ass, whatever other euphemism you want, that, hey, I have suddenly this bevy of skills I can tap into. So when you have run or been involved in those types of games, Sean, have you encountered other players with that conundrum, or do you? Or I guess I'm looking for your opinion as well here. Obviously, I
do find that some people may be thrown off at the fact that there is no predefined skill list, but it doesn't take too much time to overcome it. Now, the tricky thing is I don't think they have a hard time overcoming it, but because it's not in their face, then they may not realize it. So subconsciously, because it's not a list that doesn't have a number assigned to it, that they may end up forgetting that they can actually do something that isn't listed on their sheet. So when it comes time to climb or whatever in Brett's example, and it doesn't have the climb on there, they may just be like, oh, shit, what are you going to do? Well, I'm not sure. Well, you could just climb up, right? Oh. Yeah. Okay, got it, right. Sure. And then if they tie it into their history, like DCC, for example, they can come up with a backstory or profession that they were that had something to do with good climbing. Maybe they were a guide. And you just may have to poke them a little bit. But, preference-wise, I guess we're going to get into that in a bit. But no, every once in a while, but I think players, as long as you explain the game and the system, they can typically overcome it. Is the short answer. That's my final answer.
That's your final answer? Oh, awesome. Beep, you're wrong.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
damn it, again.
Son of a bitch, this game.
So I thought about this with my buddy Zave. So
Don't get hung up on it, Zave.
No, he's not. So we were chatting about it. He's like, no, I can get past this. It's just kind of weird. I'm used to a thing. And it dawned on me after we had the conversation the second time, kind of following up on it. I said, you know what you can do, dude? I said, you love to build backgrounds. He said, yeah, I really do. I like to, know where my character's from. And he's one of those guys, much like my buddy Nick and a few other people I game with, they'll write fairly extensive backgrounds that they'll have that don't necessarily have to hit the table. And they don't care about that. It's just stuff that helps them play their character. It's notes, personalities, family, or just a bullet list or a casserole of whatever data they have so that they can call it out whenever they want it so that they don't forget it, to your point. So, excuse me, I said, what you could do, man, is just write out a list of skills. We've all played games long enough where you could say, you know what, I have climbing, blacksmithing, brewing, swimming, guns, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Write those things, say, hey, I'm good at this stuff. I am, Jason Bourne, super spy guy. Okay, whatever piece or bit of data you need. It's almost like from Recess the Anything RPG by S. John Ross. It's kind of this weird, like, I am, Viking warrior. Okay, if you just that phrase itself, almost peeking back to the Cypher system discussion with Darcy and Troy, where they're like, look, you say, hey, I am this type of person. Your phrase. using that. But anyway, basically, you can make your own list of skills. Just because the game system doesn't have it does not mean that that's not a thing that you as the player can't create to help you play your character better.
Yeah, man. True statement.
So what I told Zave, I'm like, dude, if this would help you, sit down and say, you know what, my person, his old elf in my Lamentations game, or a couple of his characters in DCC, I said, if it helps, say, hey, I grew up in Cowlinsport, I'm this person, I know how to farm, do this, do this, do this, do this. Even if it's just a little bullet point list of things that will always trip your memory, it's really good to do that. Again, just because there's not an official list of skills doesn't mean you can't build one of your own and just say, yeah, I have it here. My character's background indicates that he was raised in this area, Sean, so therefore, it makes sense that I would know how to track animals because of all the hunting we did. Oh, all right, cool. Off you go. And sometimes, if you've written it down, the other thing that does is it not necessarily a level of permanence, but a level of, I've always had this. On occasion, you'll run into the players that will always conveniently have a background twist that allows them to be really, really good in everything at just the right moment. So this kind of helps to stop that. Cheating, shortly, I guess, in lack of a better word, kind of a blunt edge to it. But the other thing that it does is then it gives us this concept of, oh, I've always had this stuff. And again, not everybody, till we talked about learning games and so forth, not everybody is very confident. My buddy Lenny, on the other hand, he'll just make shit up all the time. Yeah, I totally have that in my background. Yeah, that totally fits. And then he remembers all of those things that he said, either mentally or he jots down notes saying, hey, yeah, I mentioned the fact that I'm friends with the cobbler's family. Sketch, 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 friends with cobbler's family. So if and when that ever comes up again, he's got it noted that that's a thing he has. He's fine to make up his background on the fly. I've met other men and women gamers I've been with that don't like doing that. Sean, what do you like to do? Would you prefer to have a list that way, or do you mind coming up with it on the fly? And if you do come up with it on the fly, two-part question, how do you make sure that you're keeping track of it appropriately? Or do you not care?
I'm still thinking about cobbler.
You just want apple cobbler or peach cobbler or something. You're just hungry.
Cobbler.
Sean just ate dinner. He's looking for dessert.
I would not write a list, me, personally, because, I just step up to the game, Brett, and I come up with my stuff, man, because, I've game mastered, Brett, and I have to come up with things on the fly on occasion, and doing that as a player, it's something I do, and it's not that big a deal.
Doesn't bother you. You're just that good.
Well, I don't know if it's about being good, Brett.
No, if it's,
I think it's
comfort level.
I think it's just something I do. I think it's like inherent. It's just something I don't think it might come with time. I didn't fall off this horse. I didn't fall off this horse yesterday, Brett.
If this was a visual medium, you guys would be giggling because he's making an awesome face right now. It's funny as hell.
I don't know what you're talking about, buddy. I wouldn't, though. I would probably just roll with it, come up with the concept, and just kind of and say, hey, this is what I would do, and this is why, and I think tying it into a player character. I think some people, as a game master, you may have to, or you may want to suggest certain things because not everybody, especially when they're on the spot. Like sometimes role-playing games, if you've ever talked to somebody that could speak a different language and you say, hey, say something in German. And they're like, what do you want me to say? They're put on the spot. It's kind of weird. And the same thing with a role-playing game. They kind of go, hey, just think of this. And they're like, and just bring up some suggestions. Like, well, what's your background? What did you do when you were younger? What was your profession before you became a adventurer? Whatever that is. And eventually it'll kind of tick. I think it'll click in somebody's mind. So if I had a writer's block, then I would probably write it down, which could happen.
That's fair.
I'm getting old, man. I might have to write stuff down in like next week.
That's fair. The other thing I found when you talk about the giving hints or whatever, sometimes even as a game master, to not like corner people per se and say, hey, Brandon, you don't seem to be able to come up with something. So here, let me give you some specific things to help you, Brandon, get out of this. sometimes you introduce the scene and the group is kind of looking at it going, God, how do we figure this out? You can say, well, does anybody here have like a tracking background? Is anybody in the wilderness much? Oh, yeah. My guy grew up on a farm. Would that help? Yeah, that could be helpful. Yeah, that's good. And it's kind of a sourcing the table for background history where, again, there's no skills per se. Instead of saying, well, someone give me a perception roll or who's got the best tracking or survival skill. When you don't have those types of things, you can say, well, somebody, I'm pretty sure most of you characters are from the town. Did anybody grow up in this neighborhood or know anything about the baker who just died? Was he like a family friend? I mean, some of you guys have own businesses. Ange goes, oh yeah, that's me. Or Susan says, yeah, that's my character too. And maybe we both know her from our background. And that, granted, there's no skill there per se, but it's another way to source the table and then just flip it to skills. How would I don't know if I would know how to. I want to tie a knot. I want to do something with a rope. You say, well, if you had anyone a sailor background or even a seamstress knows how to tie knots. Oh yeah, you know what? I grew up, and my mom, was a seamstress. She sewed stuff for a living. So yeah, I know how to do that. Okay, great. Just on a bigger scale. Maybe I'm not as good as a sailor, but hey, this knot will hold. So that's another way when we're sourcing the table for data. You can also, in OSR, I'm using that term very loosely here, but in that skill-less game, to source for skills by prodding the players with questions about their background, any background that you feel would be applicable. And then I've often been very surprised when somebody would be like, you know what? Again, I'm not a sailor, a rope maker, or a thief, but I'm a seamstress. Oh, yeah? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, we need to repair something. Oh, I was a sailmaker. I should be able to fix your pants or whatever it is. There's no sewing skill. There's no mending skill per se, but you're just using something from your background to then influence what you're trying to accomplish. So that, again, just another way to pull that out of the group. If people are stymied and don't know necessarily how to come up with the background how to utilize a quasi-nebulous or not written down list of skills and just kind of pull it from the table into the event.
Yeah.
So, Sean, do you have a preference? Do you like one or another?
I do like the 5e iteration of skills, which is essentially that there's a list. They're not huge. It's not extensive. And there's an ability that is applied to it. And if you're skilled, you get a proficiency bonus. So if you have the skill, because it aligns with your class or your background or whatever that is, then you are going to be a little bit more well-versed in doing that particular thing. Where you could still do everything else, and it ties to your dex or your strength or your wisdom or whatever it is, your ability, which I think is fine, which is good, and it gets you a little bit.
It's a little more prescriptive version of the old school, okay, you want to try to do a thing, give me a dex check to see if you can figure it. Give me a con check. Now I'm saying give me a perception check, which is based on your wisdom. And, so there's a consistency level there, too, where one time I'm trying to get you to perceive something, and I, as DM, say, check, give me your int, give me a whatever, and intelligence or wisdom or charisma. I don't know. We'll use this one for now. So there's a level of consistency that goes with that, too.
Yeah, and still, even in 5e, you could still use the ability modifier. So give me a strength check because you're doing this.
Yes.
Doing that. It's not listed on your sheet or whatever. You could still, as a game master, dungeon master, call for a check, use your ability modifier, and let it rip. So I do like that. The percentage ones, the GURPS, I guess if it's the game I'm playing, I would certainly adapt. It wouldn't be I don't play GURPS every day for a particular reason. And that would probably be one of them. That and the fact that I don't know anybody that's playing GURPS. And I love Steve Jackson. Uncle Steve.
Yes.
As he is now known affectionately to me.
I'll tell you, I've gotten to a point where my preference has gotten to be the 5e definitive list of skills is about as detailed as I'm liking at this point. The uber detailed lists in like my Rollmaster, even my 5th or 6th edition Call of Cthulhu. I have not played the latest edition of Call of Cthulhu or read it, so I don't know what they've changed there. Gumshoe's not too bad. The investigative stuff being a different set of rules versus the generalized skills. They don't seem too heavy duty to me. They seem thin enough in the right places that I can make it flow. Part of it for me, excuse me, is when the skill lists are thin, or they're not as exhaustive, I guess is a better way to put it. When they're not as exhaustive, it's easier for me to just flat remember what the hell they are, simply because from bouncing from system to system, oh, I want to play this, oh, I want to play that. I don't like having to say, well, give me a spot hidden check. And someone goes, I don't have a spot hidden. I'm like, cheat. I'm like, for fuck's sake, it's perception. Just figure it out, you know. And when it's
and the smacker comes across from the table,
bang, you know, a warning shot across the bow. But when the list is smaller, like in 5e and so forth, it's easy to say, oh, you want to try to find something, you can scan it, you can find it quickly. When it's very long, labor-intensive, again, it's not like you can't master it. It just takes a little bit longer. That's all. But
we didn't do Gumshoe, which is a whole nother different thing to skills.
Yeah, I mean, well, we have done a Gumshoe episode. We
have.
Right,
but not in this.
I didn't get into it right here. Just kind of wanted to talk about kind of the two polar ends of it.
Gotcha.
I think what we're both saying is that we're kind of in the middle almost. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't mind having none. Like, I'm loving DCC and so on, and not having that definitive list or exhaustive list. But I also do like some meat around that. So I think I might be middle of the road here, man.
I am a moderate.
You're a moderate.
I'm a moderate skill user, skill approacher.
I'm moderately skilled.
Yeah, I don't like to think I'm too far on the left. I don't think I'm too far on the right.
You're just all about common sense, man. What makes sense? I mean, come on. How hard could this be? Really? All right.
Yeah, that's right.
So, as usual, I'm sure Sean and I have gotten something wrong, or somebody else has a much better perspective than we have. So let us know. Write in, give us a call, post up, tell us what you think. I'm curious. I mean, the ideas we threw out about how to quote unquote fix or help players or game masters get through those ones that don't have any. We didn't really dig into how do you help people with exhaustive lists. Sometimes there's probably a different perspective, but again, the lens I was coming at was looking at it from there is no skill list here. What can I do? That seemed to be kind of the different angle I want to take here. But anyway, so again, if I'm wrong, somebody come at me. Let me know.
Oh, look at all kinds of feedback on that one.
I'm wrong about the specific thing. That's all I mean.
Die roll, baby. That's 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming or geekery I want to share with you. All right, Brett. I don't think I have any this week.
I've done that to you on occasion. So between the listeners and I, we'll carry. You've carried me many times, Sean. I'll carry you here.
I haven't been on the pluses much, and usually that's a grounds of...
It's a hotbed of coolness.
It is.
So the first one I found, there was a kind of I think this is in one of the Google Plus places I found, but a death row inmate eats an entire Bible for their last meal.
Yum.
So apparently the death row inmate... Wow. So the picture they show of this individual is like big facial tattoos, big pentagram on his head, just crazy ass looking dude. Like, oh, death row inmate. Wow, okay. I mean, he's like a Hollywood picked version of that. And apparently he had asked for a Bible, and the people thought, oh, he wants to, pray, repent. He's about to die tomorrow, so here. And he tore it into pieces and ate the whole damn thing. So that's a little weird. So again, the posts go up like, what ritual was he trying to complete? What's he trying to do with this? Because we're gamers, right? So we're looking at this thing saying, okay, he did a weird thing. He's just a weird motherfucker. But put the game flip on it. Oh my God, what happens when he dies now? He did a thing, was at the culmination of a finalized ritual, and now we kill him, and this other horrible thing occurs. Wow.
Been 30-some years in the making, and now finally
he got it done.
Finally, he's going to eat the Bible and die, and then all the prophecy will be fulfilled.
Yes. Have you ever seen? You remember the old movie Shocker? Remember that one? The
No.
80s movie. I think it was a Wes Craven guy gets electric chair and travels through electricity and kills people.
A Wes Craven movie
think it
from
was.
the
I
80s?
think so.
Oh, that's crazy.
Anyway, next up, Bermuda Triangle. There was a ship that reappeared 90 years later.
What?
Link in the show notes. That stuff's just cool.
Just one ship?
Just one. No, they push them out every couple years.
So what is it? A ghost ship, or is it a physical ship? Or
It's an actual ship. Yeah, it's a big boat.
well, I don't want to get on that thing. It's like a 90-year journey.
It'll be fine. It'll be
I'll never get where I need to in time. Shit, that's not a freaking 3-hour tour.
No, it is not. All right, next up, friend of the show.
Piloting that goddamn thing.
Next up, friend of the show, Eli Kurtz, has his Blackwood setting that he's been doing for Savage Worlds. Got a link in the show notes to kind of his little primer that he's put out. Link there, and I believe he's also got a Kickstarter coming up on May 2nd. So when the show drops, I think that'll be out there as well. So Eli's a really good guy. He's been very supportive of the show, giving us a lot of good info and so on. So I figured I'd give him a little shout out here as well.
And voice actor.
Yes, absolutely.
Voice acting. So I don't know what his going rate is, but if you need some voice acting done, I'm sure Eli Kurtz would be your.
And whatever his rates are, Sean will do it at half.
Yeah, shit, quarter
rates, whatever. Hell, he'll do it for free.
You got any bubble gum?
Okay, bubble gum. You got a Blatz? Two Blatz and a stick of gum. I'm in.
Couple beers. All right,
Listeners for you.
Yeah. Tim Jensen posts an article from Vice, which outlines the Danish school. At this Danish school, LARPing is the future of education. So we know the Mongrel is heavily involved with doing some research and the benefits of role-playing games. Here's another example of the Danes. The Danes, a lot of the Scandinavian countries, huge on LARPs. Their LARPs are just there's a book. One of the books that I forgot the name of the book. Something about the Guide to Nordic LARP. Something.
Oh yeah.
It's very intense,
yep.
Right? It's very But anyways, I tell you what, man, it's kind of like skiing out west, Brett. I think if I went to a Scandinavian country and LARPed, I probably wouldn't want to LARP anywhere else.
Oh yeah, it'd be so intense. It's so good.
It's like going out to Colorado and skiing in the Rockies, and then coming back to Wisconsin and going, "Hey, want to go skiing?" Like, not really.
Yeah, maybe if you had a real fucking mountain.
Right. So, anyways,
you know what?
This
tells me though.
I don't know why I got into that analogy, but
we got to get the Last Hope LARP. I got to get some of those people on the show. We have to have a LARP episode. We got to talk LARP with those guys.
Cow. I am like LARP ignorant. I've never LARPed.
I know. We got to get you educated, man.
I am just green. Okay. Brian Kreutzinger, crew of World War I sub, claimed they were attacked by a sea monster. Now, the wreck has been found.
Nice.
It probably lines up with that Bermuda Triangle ship that frickin' 90 years later.
It could. You never know.
Did I line correctly? What's 90 years ago? 1915?
Maybe. I suck at math, so yes, they all line up.
98 years.
We're gamers, man. Make it work.
Anyways, check that out for some inspiration. Andy Hall tells us about the plan to reawaken cryogenically frozen brains and transplant them into someone else's skull.
It just sounds. It's an Italian surgeon who audaciously plans to perform the world's first human head transplant within the next 10 months, pending availability of a donor body. Pending. So if you know any motherfucker in the office who's brain dead, just get him to sign up because it might be worth a shot. It
just occurred to me, where the hell are some of our listeners like hanging out online to find some of this crap? Just kidding, Andy.
We're gamers, man. We find the craziest ass shit.
Yeah, Reddit, man. Reddit and Imager or something. I don't know. Good stuff, though. Very good inspiration points this week.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing those with us, everybody. I appreciate it. Brett, what the hell are we talking about next week?
Next week, I want to talk about our characters, our PCs building stuff, castles, keeps, magic items, all sorts of stuff characters build sometimes. I want to talk about that.
It's going to build some stuff.
Build some stuff.
Sweet.
We're going to get into carpentry. It's going to turn into an entire show on carpentry. It's a little self-help.
Maybe a podcast or a game. It's a meta. My player character is going to create a role-playing game.
Oh, God.
Holy shit. All right. Well, hey, this is enough of this silliness. Let's get back on track, Brett. Hey, this has been another game. God. Say goodnight, Irene.
Good night, Irene.
All right. This has been another show of Gaming and BS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.
This episode of Gaming and BS brought to you with the help from the following patrons. Christian Sexy Voice Serrano, Kevin Lovecraft, Joe Swick, Brett's Biggest Fan, Jeff Rademacher, Forrest DeGarry, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Eric Jefferson, Andy Hall, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Chris Steele, Knights of the Night Crew, Palladian, Jason Blaylock, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Wayne Hunfleet, James Carpio, Not Caprio, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnston, Eric Tankar, Brandon Barnes, Mark Tasaka, Brett Pazinski, Tim Shorts, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, Victor Wyatt, Craig Huber, Eli Kurtz, Lost Sailor, Graham Minor, Todd McGowan, Roger Brassett, Misdirected Mark Productions, Old School DM, Jason, Christopher Gray, Tabletop Game Talk Podcast, Stefan Dragonspawn, Evan Harrison Cass, Finn Ulf, Ray Otis, Mirko Froelich, Eileen Barnes, Tony Baker, Jared Rosher, Jared Lytle, Todd Crapper, Michael Parker, Jim Fitzpatrick, Michael Drescher, With Static, and Alexander Auerbach. For the cost of a coffee shop coffee, you can support the show for an entire month. Visit gamingnbs.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. Thank you, patrons. Thank you, listeners.
This has been a Litterbox Studio production.